Today I want to do a small thought experiment, like just explore what if humans had the smelling sense of the strength of a dog? How would that change us? How would that probably change the world? I just want to explore a little thought experiment and just have a little bit of fun thinking about how would things be different if we had a very different sense, or not different sense, but if our smell sense would be a lot stronger. So, I haven't prepared anything for this, so this is just a little bit fun on the go, just wanting to explore this thought experiment. And let's start, I think, with perception on its own. If we had the smelling sense of a dog, we were able to smell a lot more around us. We were able to, or first, maybe set the conditions, or more so the context of this thought experiment. I'm not very much aware, and I haven't done any research on how the smelling sense of a dog works exactly. So my assumption is for this experiment that the smelling sense would be a lot stronger, but I would also assume that it would have a lot more of range in how good it is, potentially on how active the smelling is. I would assume in any case it would be a lot stronger, like even just passively how we are currently smelling, that having the smelling sense of a dog would always be a lot stronger, but I would assume the range is also a little bit wider in if it's just passively not really actively smelling something, and the intensity and the strength of that sense we are actively doing it, and then even more if you're practicing that, would be very big, to be honest. But even like the lowest point would be a lot higher than it's with our sense right now. So that's like my assumption on these things. I don't really know to what exact amount the strength of the sense of smelling in a dog is actually increased, so we will just go with a vibe here. Having a lot stronger of, like having such a high strength of a smelling sense, I would assume would very much rearrange the importance of senses that we have. Currently, humans are very much visual first. At least in our societies, we are very much putting our vision sense at the top level. It's very much our number first smell, or like not smell, sense. So, and I'm not sure if that would particularly change, because vision is just very important for navigation and for a lot of things. Let's think about maybe a little bit how an really insanely strong smelling sense, in what kind of areas it would overtake our visual sense in a would be number one on the sense list, and like would it be our primary sense that we focus most on, or would it still be vision first? So where's vision very important? Let's start maybe from this. Vision, I think, is very important when it comes, of course, to navigation. It's insanely helpful to see everything at distance around you. I mean, not completely around, but you can just look around and just have a very good impression of where things are, how far they're away, what might be dangerous, what are like directions that I can go, stuff like that. It's just very immediately instant recognition of the things around us, and that helps us navigate and move around a lot. For like just what are there, what are like obstacles, stuff like that. Vision is like not really, you can't really beat, I think, the sense of vision. I mean, of course, you could have better senses even for that, but smelling wouldn't overtake it in that area. Humans then are also very social beings, and being able to see, like we are very much showing and reflecting our emotions on the outside, probably more so than most other animals or living beings that we know, because we are that social of beings. And a lot of communication comes from, well, how our muscles move. like how we're acting, how we're moving, our face expression or hand expression or non-verbal communication is extremely important for humans. And visual cues are very important for that. Like being able to see someone else and just see how they're feeling, what state they are, what are like the internal emotions. Being able to see that is very important for the human society to work and for it to be. So if we had, and vision for that part is quite an important part there. The question is, how would play a strong smelling sense into that? I would assume a strong smelling sense would give us a different layer, but I don't think a strong smelling sense would change the importance of seeing other people and being able to read their emotions and their emotional states just by looking at someone, especially also from distance. With someone that we might be very close, like where smelling comes in, we would be able to smell potentially emotional states because we would be able to smell like the hormone state of a person. We would smell like that their scent would change depending maybe on the mood or on the internal states. We would be able with such a strong smell, we potentially would be able to kind of look a little bit deeper in a very different way. But I don't think that would add to in what way we can be social and what expressions and what kind of bonds, how we can read people, how we can fake something potentially also, things like that. It would add a whole dimension to that, but I don't think that the smelling sense necessarily would overtake the importance of the visual sense there. I don't think that would change our like the importance of the visual sense for socializing. I think a very strong smelling sense, I would have to think how it would affect our social behaviors. If we were able to smell like dogs again, we potentially could smell like we would get a lot more information from like the internal states and processes of another human, because I would assume that some processes in us would be reflected and would be given off by sense, by gases, by some molecules escaping us, and they're changing depending on what happens in our body, like digestion, for example. I would assume that depending on how we eat and how we are currently processing, or maybe we have a lack of being able to process something or something like this, we just have different changes in our digestive system. I would assume that our scent potentially would change more than maybe some other things, like, I don't know, like smelling the state of our heart or like the liver or something like this, those kind of things. It's probably not as profound smellable and like on a first glance, on a first smell, as it is with like the digestive system. I would assume, because the digestive system is very much on the outside in a lot of ways, even if it's inside of us. I would assume we would have a lot more molecules and signals and chemical just senses that we could get from that would actually get to the outside, compared to organs that are completely inside of us, and where the processes are potentially not, where you don't potentially have as many chemical stuff that you can then smell getting out of that would give it a little bit more insight into the state and the processes that happen in certain organs. But in general, I would think our way how we can read the state of another person, like kind of the health state, we would get a little bit more of that picture, I would assume, if we had a very strong smelling sense. I mean, some dogs are able to smell cancer cells, which is a very fascinating thing to think about. And we would be able to do that as well. So medicine would change in a big part in how we, of course, look at this. Culturally, with a very strong smelling sense, we humanity would have changed or would have been very different. Not changed because that would just be the thing hardware, but our culture would be probably quite a lot different. One thing that would be interesting to think about how a strong smelling sense would actually change how we first smells would become a lot more important, as they already are. Smells are already very. Our smelling sense is one of our most primary, one of our oldest senses. So it's one of the most hard-coded thing in our brain. Like when we're sleeping and we can't really see and we potentially can't hear a lot, we're still smelling things. So like if something smells foully, we are very aware of that even when we are like unconscious. While a lot of higher senses that developed later on are not as deeply reaching into us as smells are. So smells really penetrate to us, and that would not change. That would just be a lot stronger. So smells also from a cultural perspective on how we potentially, like on the beauty side, like fashion and like cosmetic stuff and like that on smells that would even be a lot more important than it is right now. I am not sure with a very strong smelling sense if we would go a lot into the direction of like I don't know what I'm missing the English word, like perfumes and stuff like that. I'm not sure if we would go more in that direction or potentially less, because going strong in that direction could interfere with smelling another person how they are, and with being able to smell that and get a lot of information for that. There might be importance in that having strong artificial smells would be more than it is right now, where we are currently, I think, we have a lot of the, well, you smell bad, and we only have like you smell good, you smell bad, kind of the vibe. We don't really look a lot into that, and it's just very like neglected, and like we just look down when you smell bad. But we don't value the information that we get from that. I'm not sure how humans would change in that regard, but it could be a way where, because we smell that much more, there might be a more importance of being able to smell other humans in the way that we get information. Like again, there could be a stronger social element and a stronger we could get a lot more information from other people by smelling them, and by like kind of hiding and clouding that in stronger perfumes and in like just artificial smells. There could be a part, or there could be a way where that would be socially disliked in a way, because it's kind of like hiding. It's like putting on a mask and not letting you see your facial expression. Like it could be a kind of that thing where I think in our society it's not that nicely looked at, that you can't see the faces of other people, because it just is like scary because we can't read them in a way. Like that's not, we do that for like fun stuff like that, but I think like on, at least in our Western culture, it's, I think, not as preferred. We would like to see people, at least the faces, really, and I think there's a social importance in that. And there could be a path with having a very strong sense as humans, that would be important, and we would like to not lose that. And so maybe like leaning strong into perfumes and just artificial smells, and beautifying us a little bit up in a way that could be a little bit more disliked potentially. But we could also, of course, go the other route. But because we are having that small of sense, we are that sensitive, and maybe the social information that we get from that, from just authentically and raw smelling another person, getting information from that and acting with that, might not be actually as important. And so maybe we're just more sensitive, and smelling bad is even a lot worse because we're just that sensitive to it. And maybe we just want to, maybe it's also part of where, well, maybe it's a privacy thing, like shielding yourself up from smelling like yourself and covering it up. Like we don't show certain body parts publicly. We might not want to, we might protect ourselves from others smelling us. That could also be very much a dynamic. And we lean, because of that, we lean more into into covering our smells with some other artificial and like nice smelling or strong smelling smells or scents. Is it scents? Doesn't matter. Yeah, so there could be many ways depending on how these things move out that such smells would change us on a social and cultural level. I think with that, I will leave it here. The time for this video that I planned before is already over. I had fun doing this. Maybe I will look a little bit more tomorrow into this. Not done yet. I think there's a little bit more to think and discover about. Thinking about how would we change, how would be different. I do enjoy this doing from time to time, just to like broaden our perspective and also getting a little bit humble and insights of what of our cultures and what of us comes from the way how we are, and that the way that we are comes from historical ancestor things, or just our environment and stuff like that. And if that would differ, how would it differ? I do like to expand my horizon and just think about those things a little bit, to just put some things into perspective and just know a little bit more about where our subjective views and our subjective realities come from. I think there's a lot to learn from trying to look at things from a different perspective. I hope you have a nice day.